Title: On our anniversary, she cheated in front of everyone. She smirked as I walked away, convinced I would fold and forgive. The divorce, however, was only the opening move. I had a plan, one designed to ruin her standing, strip away her comforts, and leave her drowning in regret. Chapter 1. The Anniversary. Trap 12 years. That's how long we'd shared a life. On that particular evening, our anniversary, I truly believed we were honoring everything we'd built. The rooftop restaurant shimmered under soft lighting. Candles flickered on every table. Our nearest and dearest were there, dressed in their finest. A waiter tapped a glass with a spoon and called for a toast. To Nick and Ava, 12 years, and many more. Applause filled the air. Ava's smile looked sincere, at least at first. Then the night unraveled. She drifted toward another table. I assumed she was just saying hello to a few colleagues she'd invited at the last minute. One of them, a man I didn't know, laughed a touch too loudly at everything she said. Another drink arrived, and then another. That's when the touching began, his palm settling on her hip, her fingers tracing the front of his shirt. I watched. Everyone watched. I saw it. We all saw it, someone whispered. Ava, I said softly. She regarded me as if I were an interruption, a nuisance. Then, right there with the whole room watching, she leaned toward the stranger and kissed him. Not a quick, polite peck, a long, deliberate kiss. Silence fell. Her mother's breath hitched. My closest friend sat frozen. Even the band fell quiet. When she broke away, she laughed. Oh, come on, Nick, don't be so dramatic. It's our anniversary. Share for once, will you? She taunted. I stood still for a beat, feeling the burn of shame and disbelief. Then something resolved inside me, and I allowed myself to smile, not because I felt fine, but because clarity had arrived. Enjoy the evening, I said, voice composed, and walked toward the exit. Don't be like this, she called after me. You're too sensitive. I didn't answer. In that instant, I already knew my next steps. Chapter 2. The Quiet. Exit didn't go home that night. I didn't scream or call her out. I sent no messages. While Ava likely toasted her own audacity with champagne, I checked into a modest extended stay suite on the outskirts of town under an assumed name. That choice began a hush. I cut off all noise. For the next 48 hours, I ignored every incoming call and text. Ava reached out once with a single message. You're overreacting. We need to talk. I let it sit unread. My time was spent in meetings, one attorney for the divorce and another for corporate asset protection. Through the years, I'd kept most assets in my name. The home, the cars, our investments. At the time, people had called my structure old school. Now it was my best defense. Ava had no idea it was coming. By the fourth day, her tone shifted. Nick, what's happening? Why won't you answer me? You're acting crazy. Crazy, she said. I focused on numbers. The divorce papers were already filed, and half of our liquid accounts had been moved into a trust. She assumed I was sulking. Meanwhile, I'd hired a private investigator. You want dirt? He asked. No, I said. I want indisputable evidence, airtight proof. The fragile tower finally began to collapse. By the week's end, I cut off her access to the credit cards. The car she paraded around in, a lease under my name, was already flagged for repossession. That's when Ava stormed into my office, tearing past reception like a raging storm. Where the hell have you been? Why are my cards getting declined? What are you doing to me? I met her eyes without flinching. I'm drawing the line, Ava. Preparing for the life you chose? Her face twisted in disbelief. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm completely serious, I said. No more silence. No more letting it slide. Her bravado faltered. I leaned across the desk. That night you laughed in my face. You humiliated me in front of everyone. I didn't shout. I didn't break down. I didn't make a scene. You assumed I'd just accept it like always. But now you're seeing what my silence can do. Her complexion drained. For the first time, fear flickered in her eyes. Chapter 3. The Legal Trap. When the divorce proceedings began, I entered the courtroom calm, collected, and armed with every document prepared down to the last detail. Ava, on the other hand, strolled in late. She looked disoriented, her freshly dyed hair failing to disguise the exhaustion etched into her face. She still thought she held the upper hand. She didn't realize she'd already lost the game. Her lawyer opened aggressively, demanding alimony, our home, the car, even half my company. I stayed silent until the judge turned my way. Then I presented a neatly bound file. Inside was everything. The prenuptial agreement she had signed a week before our wedding. Photographic and time-stamped proof of her infidelity. Bank records verifying my complete control of all accounts and assets. A recorded statement from her own mother condemning her behavior at our anniversary dinner. The judge barely looked at her attorney before delivering the ruling. Given the evidence and the marital agreement, judgment is in favor of the petitioner. The respondent is entitled to no alimony, no share of the business, and must vacate the residence within 30 days. The house? Always mine. I bought it 2 years before she ever entered my life. The car? Gone. Her leverage? Shattered. Within a week, I cut off her credit lines. The car she flaunted, a lease on my name, was set to be reclaimed. A few days later, she surrendered the keys to a repo driver outside a cafe. People stopped and stared. She sobbed. No one reached out. The social fallout had begun. I didn't need to invent stories. I spoke plainly and repeatedly to friends, relatives, and colleagues. A short note, always identical. Thank you for coming to our anniversary. I appreciate your support as Ava and I separate. That tiny message was all it took. Conversation started. Memories resurfaced. Slowly, the polished facade Ava had spent years crafting began to show hairline cracks. 3 days after the divorce became official, she phoned, weeping. Nick, they fired me. The board said they can't have negative attention. Sorry to hear that, I answered evenly. That's the outcome of your choices. No sympathy. Just consequence. Chapter 4. Reputation unraveled, Ava had long relished being envied. Beautiful, magnetic, climbing the ladder. She called herself a connector, someone who could open doors and make the right introductions. After the split, all of that unraveled because she'd never accounted for one thing, the quiet spread of truth. The Whisper Network did its work. Messages went unanswered. Invitations stopped arriving. People who'd once sat beside her at our celebration began to withdraw. The tale didn't require exaggeration. A married woman kissing a stranger at her anniversary, laughing it off, then asking for sympathy when her husband walked away. Witnesses remembered the kiss. Witnesses remembered the laugh. No amount of dazzling charm could erase that image. She tried to reclaim control at an industry conference, arriving polished in a new dress and forcing smiles for cameras. I sent a discreet email to the event organizer, an unembellished clip attached, showing her slurred toast from our anniversary, arm around the man she'd kissed, saying, 12 years. Now I can finally enjoy myself. The clip circulated quietly among attendees. They didn't pull her from the panel, but when she took the stage, the applause was thin and reluctant. She felt it. And worse, she knew they knew. Her life shrank. Gone were the mansion, the club privileges, the overflowing wardrobe. She moved into a modest 2-bedroom walk-up, a place she had once dismissed as unimaginative. I didn't revel in it. I simply watched her become someone nobody needed to protect anymore. Near midnight, she called me again. I let it ring twice before picking up. Her voice trembled. Nick, I don't deserve anything, but I don't know how I ended up here. Could you do me a favor? A recommendation? A call? I answered coolly. I already gave you something. What? She whispered. Freedom. Then I disconnected. Chapter 5. The final strike. 3 months had passed since she'd humiliated me in front of everyone. She'd expected me to break. Instead, she had seen her world fracture while I didn't interfere. But I wasn't finished. There was one last move to make. Ava had dreams of becoming a brand, fashion lines, lifestyle content, even a podcast. She'd pitched a digital series to a small media outfit months earlier. Through a mutual contact, an off-the-record producer, I passed along verifiable material. Her public indiscretion, The subsequent professional fallout, the leaked clip from the anniversary, and the fact that her affair partner had also lost his job. I didn't smear or spin. I laid out facts and asked plainly, "Would you want to attach your project to this?" By morning, the show was dead. A prominent relationship blog ran a piece titled something like "From It Girl to Isolation, When Public Image Collides with Private Scandal." It didn't name her, but anyone who knew her saw the outline and drew the connection. That night, her call went straight to voicemail. "You win! Are you happy now?" She left. It wasn't about victory. It was about answerability. A week later, we crossed paths in a neighborhood cafe. She looked diminished, thinner, quieter, wearing a coat she would once have sneered at. She approached slowly. "Nick," she said, voice almost gone. I inclined my head. "Ava, I'm not here to beg. I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything," she stammered. I measured her for a long beat, feeling neither anger nor pity. "I believe you," I said, steady. "I hope you become someone better than who you were." She blinked. "You mean that?" "Yes," I replied, "but I won't forget." Then I turned and walked away. Finally, peace. That evening I poured a drink, not as a toast, not as triumph, but to close the last chapter of a story I never asked to be in. She'd disgraced me on the night meant to celebrate our marriage. In time, I rebuilt what had been broken. She was left with the memory of what she'd undone. That, more than any vindictive act, was the most fitting consequence. Was such retribution justified? Tell us what you would have done in the comments. If the story resonated, share it with someone who needs this kind of closure, and subscribe for more raw tales of betrayal and reckoning. Here masks fall eventually, and every deceit casts a long shadow. Stay aware. Stay strong.